Today marks the 40th anniversary of what is still referred to as the biggest scandal in Washington's history, Watergate. On this very day, two members of President Nixon's committee for re-election, Gordon Liddy and James McCord Jr., were found guilty and convicted of conspiracy, burglary, and attempting to wiretap the Democratic Party's headquarters at the Watergate building right here in D.C. The roots of the Watergate scandal can be traced back to Nixon's presidency, which was notoriously secretive. A famous example being the release of the Pentagon Papers, which exposed the secrets of Vietnam and information about illegal bombings of Laos and Cambodia without congressional knowledge. The Pentagon Papers hitting the press smeared Nixon's image, and as a result, he became even more evasive and distrusting of the American public. Ironically enough, as reserved as he was, Nixon made audio recordings of meetings and personal thoughts he had in the Oval Office, material that would soon lead to his demise. He had a group of people working for him under the committee to re-elect the president, also known as CREEP. These are the guys that got caught breaking into the Democratic National Headquarters, but their connection to President Nixon had yet to be made. It wasn't until after Nixon won re-election that his association with the burglars was discovered, which marked the beginning of a formal investigation against him. It's important to note that Nixon and his chief of staff conspired to have the CIA bring the investigation to a halt by saying it was a national security matter. Sound familiar? Needless to say, that plan failed, which led to these famous words.
In all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
Those words proved to be empty. Even though Nixon claimed executive privilege in the case, in 1974, the Supreme Court forced him to release the tapes. And this is a very important decision, because it sent a message to the president and to the public that said, no one is above the law. But before he was subject to the embarrassment of congressional hearings and inevitably impeached, Nixon resigned. In addition to ridding this country of one of its most corrupt presidents ever, multiple pieces of legislation were passed in the wake of his presidency that pushed for more transparency in government. Watergate helped give rise to a new kind of journalist, the investigative reporter. People like Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. It's reminded us of the importance of leakers and whistleblowers like Daniel Ellsberg and Mark Felt of Deep Throat, people that were vital in bringing dark truths to light. And perhaps the most important lesson of all is that the President of the United States is not above the law. And my, oh my, how much that's changed today. Aside from the serious lack of investigative journalism done by the same media industry that exposed Watergate, if you look at the Bush and Obama presidencies, you'll see that there's zero accountability for their lawlessness. It's amazing to think that Nixon was brought down because of one instance of wiretapping. Look at the state of our government today. Warrantless wiretapping is rampant, and now, instead of whistleblowers being applauded, they're being imprisoned. What happened? How did we stray so far? And most importantly, how do we go back?
It's not about justice, it's not about agenda, it's not about mobilizing people, it's about dialing for corporate dollars. These two parties have sold the U.S. government and the American people to the highest bidders.